looking at here is the Snake Pass, Sumo Digital's first original own IP. And it's actually the result of an internal game jam we did last year. Sumo traditionally makes AAA games. We're currently working on Dead Island 2, Crackdown 3.
Oh, okay.
But we've always had the desire to actually make something of our own. So last year, October, everyone in the company got the opportunity for one day to work on an original game idea. And we had about 20 entries for this, and I made a rough prototype of this.
Okay.
My snake simulator is what I call it. And I managed to win that internal competition, and which led to me getting a few people and a couple of months to try to work up the idea to something we could put on Steam. But the initial result we made with that small team, after we showed that, people got really enthusiastic about it and saw the potential. So we got some more people to the team, some more time, and we really started to polishing it. And then earlier this year in April, we brought it to EGX to show it to the public for the first time.
Sure.
And the reaction was just completely overwhelmingly positive. Like we knew that we were onto something quite cute and funny, but yeah, everybody just really loved it, and that was a huge boost for the whole team to work even harder, make it even better.
Yeah.
So we brought a new version of the demo, which is very close to what the final game would actually be like. And as you can see, it's a physics-based platformer where you play as a snake. And it's actually all about, the main gameplay mechanic is you have to think and move like a snake. So just like a real snake can't really move in a straight line. He will always have to generate curves in his body to push himself forward. So as soon as you try to go straight, you'll find yourself slowing down, and it doesn't feel very good. So as soon as you start going into a nice rhythm of slithering, you'll start picking up speed. Same thing applies to climbing. Like a real snake can't just go up straight surface or straight up a tree. He'll always have to wrap around things, use his muscles, use his gravity. So that's kind of what it is like to play this game. You really have to put yourself in the mind of a snake. How would a snake get up this thing? And that is probably the best way to get up it in this game. So there's this really nice balance between realistic movement and still like interesting gameplay mechanic.
It's not easy, but like once you start understanding it, it does sort of make sense, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, the controls are initially quite easy to pick up. Like to do the basic movement is quite simple, but there's a lot of depth to the control scheme, and you'll see in the level that we'll show you later on that once you really know the controls, you can make them do really crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So there's also a little story in the game where the snake wakes up, all his friends have migrated to the top of the mountain. You're trying to catch up, but as you reach the gate at the end of the level, which normally connects up to the top of the mountain, you find that someone or something has removed the glimmers that normally power the gate. So the main objective of each level is to find and recover the 3 glimmers, reactivate the gate, and try to catch up with your friends. And as you play through the levels, you slowly find out who is responsible, what is responsible for the missing glimmers. It's a very simple story, but it's enough to keep you going. And the glimmers, as well as the other collectibles, which you call wisps, they basically are little rewards for little puzzles. Like, this is a tiny puzzle in itself. How do I get my snake to move up there?
Yeah, it's difficult, but it's not unfair because once you find out how to do it, you just got to take your time.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. Okay.
Yeah, you find a lot of players when they start, they just want to hold all the buttons and go straight up something. But that just doesn't work. You really have to plan and think, be careful.
There you go.
Yeah, this is the right technique where you carefully choose where you want to go and then go. And obviously it's always good to try to wrap around things so that when you do fall, at least you won't fall all the way.
You have to think like a snake in order to play this game correctly. So, like the bird said, you have to hold right trigger to move, and then the stick will allow you to choose the direction, but you have to slither.
So the hummingbird is your little sidekick friend. Initially he will act like Navi from Zelda, just explain, like, come over here, do this, press this button. There's actually an easier way up to the same thing around the back. Maybe try that section later on when you've got a bit more feel for it.
So when you grab those things, they make you longer. Is that what that does?
No, we have experimented with the snake being longer, and when we originally started making the game, that was one of the mechanics we wanted in it. But it turns out that the climbing as it is now really, the snake length right now is optimal. If you make him longer, then you find that your tail is constantly dragging you down, and it kind of feels like a burden. And if you make him shorter, then he doesn't have enough body to wrap around things, and you'll find yourself constantly falling down. So this is kind of the perfect length. So that we have a little bit.
What do they do?
These are linked to the long-term progression. So to complete the level, you only need to collect the 3 glimmers. But at some point, you'll reach a gate, technically in the game, where you'll need to pay a certain amount of glimmers to go on to the next world. There's also a few abilities that the snake will acquire, and they might. We're not exactly sure about this yet, but they're probably also going to be linked to collecting all the wisps. So there's also encouragement to go back later on, and there'll be some wisps that you won't be able to reach or won't be able to find on your first playthrough, and maybe you'll get an ability later that will allow you to get everything. So it encourages you to go back later on. The hummingbird actually has a practical skill as well. If you press the Y button.
Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is currently on a cooldown, which we don't have a UI element for yet, so it feels kind of like it doesn't work some of the time. But especially when you're struggling to get up like this, then pressing Y to ask the hummingbird for help can be very useful. Try it again, press Y.
Oh, what, he?
Yeah, and he will just keep holding your tail like that, and
I lost the control of everything else. Okay, yeah, I see what you mean.
yeah, for some sections it's easier with the hummingbird help, others not so much. It's especially useful in the harder levels.
So how long does he do this for?
It's easy to learn.
Why?
Yeah, we're still in finding the right balance for that. Probably in the actual game, in this level, you won't have that ability yet.
Okay.
It's something you unlock later on, and it's especially useful in the harder levels. Because currently everything that you're interacting with, everything that you're climbing is just stationary.
Yeah.
With later levels, more and more stuff will be moving. There will be less and less ground under you. So you'll find that the hummingbird is more useful then. You can also use the left trigger to hold yourself in place, sort of. I use it personally as sort of a panic button. When I have the feeling I'm about to fall, I'm just holding the trigger to make sure.
Just to make sure you know what you're doing.
And then I can calmly reposition my head and start moving again.
There we go.
So yeah, the better you get at the game, the more in control you will feel. Like in the beginning, it feels like the snake has a bit of a will of his own. But as you get better, you realize, no, I am in full control. I can make him do exactly what I want. And because it's so physics-based, every time you play the game, every time you play the level, it will be slightly different because the physics react different. You'll end up in a slightly different position. You're going the wrong way now, by the way. You're going back to the start.
Oh, I thought that was the gate. Okay. Where's the gate?
Yeah, you have 3 glimmers now, so yeah, whenever you see a white arrow, that's trying to point you towards the gate. So
Okay.
so because you have all the glimmers, you can leave now. But you've only collected 5 out of 20 wisps.
Okay.
But currently, for this demo, the wisps don't do anything yet.
So how long? What development stage is this at? Is this alpha or beta? Or
This is still pre-alpha,
Pre-alpha?
but we're planning to release in the first quarter of next year. So
Sure.
it is quite far into development. These levels are quite polished at the moment. We have most of the content ready, but a lot of it is just grey boxes still. They need to be dressed up to look good. Yeah, and then in terms of art style, personally I really love the old platform games from the 90s, like Banjo-Kazooie, Spyro the Dragon, Donkey Kong. That's the type of games that made me happy as a kid and I have such fond memories of.
Yeah.
And in the current market, it feels like everything is brown and gray and dark blue and about making headshots. And I just love the fact that we're making a game that's just all about fun and exploration and the curiosity about I wonder what they have in store for me in the next level.
Yeah, for sure.